Okay, this video is an update for making the hazard cartridges. Sorry about the background noise. My printers are going full blast. I think I have 3 or 4 of them going. So this is going to be an update on a new technique for making these. And I am using what's called, I'm kind of nicknamed it a dextrin liqueur. Back in a lot of the books I read on making black powder and other things, anything that's dissolved in a liquid, they kind of name it a liqueur. So that's kind of what this is. And this was Hugh Knight's idea to pre-mix these two together. So that's his idea for doing this, and this is a much easier and faster way to make these, and the math is a lot easier if you do this. So the first thing you want to do is to make some of this is you'll need a scale. You'll need to get your scale out, and you'll need a small container. And I have some water here, and this container, this one has water in it. And you'll need some 70% IPA alcohol, and you also need your dextrin that comes in the kit. And so you take a small container and just tear out your scale, and you will need to measure out your dextrin here, and this is the ratio that I use for this. So it's 10 grains of dextrin and 100 grains of water, and you want the water to be warm or hot. So what I do is I mix these together and I microwave it for about 10 seconds to warm up the water, and it dissolves the dextrin into the water. If you don't use hot water or warm water, it doesn't have to be boiling hot, just hot enough that it dissolves the dextrin. If you don't, it will end up like this. If you just pour it straight in, it will always separate when it sits. So if you heat it, it dissolves it right into the water, and it's so far this one has not separated, so it's kind of like a permanently dissolved mixture of dextrin in your mixture here. And then I had 10 grains of IPA alcohol, and I picked this because I figured this is available anywhere, really easy over the counter, and it's cheaper than, say, denatured alcohol. And the only reason I add this to it is because I do not know what the shelf life of this is, since it's an organic product. It's basically kind of like sugar water. Funky stuff might start growing in this. This might get moldy. So I'm thinking the alcohol will kind of help kill the bugs and stuff off from growing. But I only mix this. If you want, this ratio here is enough to do 160 25 grain powder cakes, and and this is a double batch in this, so this is enough to do what, 300 over 300 of the pellets. So just mixing in small batches, it goes a long way. If you're making hundreds and hundreds or thousands of these, you'd probably want to make a big batch. But if you're only making, say, under 50, this is plenty. This is enough to do 50 or more. So the first thing I do is take my scale here with my container, and you want to zero that out. And then you want to add your dextrin, just 5 grains of that, or close to it. Sometimes it's hard to get it exact. Oh man, look at that, dead on. Try to do that again, I don't think I could. So that's 10, and then you want to add, you can tear this out again or just go to 110 grains. So I'm just going to 0 it here, and then I'm going to add 100 grains of water. And they sell these bottles at like Hobby Lobby and some like Joanne Fabrics and Michaels. You can buy these online too. I find them useful. My kit does come with one of these. But if you want extra, I use these for everything from my glue to you name it. I got 5 or 6 different types of glue, but that's another story. And just add one a little over, so I'm 102. And so the next thing you want to do is, if that was already warm water, you could just mix this up. Just shake it like this. And it will kind of be a cloudy mix. It'll kind of be white, like a opaque mixture. And then what I do is I leave this lid a little bit loose, and I microwave this for about 8 to 10 seconds to heat this up. And when you're done, you will end up with something like this. And just make sure your container is microwave safe or it will melt. And you'll end up with it will go from being this. So it will go from this to this. And so basically it'll turn clear. It'll be slightly cloudy. And this will settle out like this. So if you just let it sit, it will separate like these. These are my first experimental ones. So, and then you have to shake it up. This doesn't work quite as well. And so basically this is kind of just, this is like your glue. And so after you're done with that, so after you're done heating it, you want to take your mix here, and you want to take your bottle, and you'll need a small funnel. And I will 0 this out and add, well actually you can just pour this in. Something like that. I did lose a little bit, but that's fine. And so the next step is to add your alcohol. I always add this after I heat it because the heat will evaporate the alcohol away pretty quick. So then I will 0 this out and just add 10 grains of this alcohol to so that's 10 grains of 70% IPA alcohol. And if you don't want to use alcohol, or if you don't want to add it to it, just add another 10 grains of water to make it the ratio correct if you don't want to use the alcohol. But I definitely recommend that. It'll increase the shelf life of the mix. And you can do half batches too, so you can do half batch. So that there is enough to make, so this little bit in this bottle here, this is enough to make at least 160 25 grain powder kegs for the 44 caliber cartridges. And so that's done. This is the mix for that. And so yeah, just definitely use a microwave safe container. or it will melt. That was 10 seconds there, or 15 maybe, and it melted it. So just be cautious of that. And so the other thing you'll need a calculator for calculating out your powder. And let's see, there's one other thing here with the molds. The other thing I do that I haven't shown in any other videos, this was kind of a new thing that I found makes them, it helps remove the cakes from the molds. And so this is, I'll put a link to this document in the description of the video. And in here, this is an excellent book on the manufacturer. It's a report on the manufacturing of gunpowder back in 1879. And there's a lot of wonderful information in this. Hugh Knight posted this on one of the Facebook groups. And it has a lot of really nice stuff in it. The ratios of making your own powder, the equipment, it goes into everything. But the part that I found interesting was there was a section in here on making prismatic powder, and they also have making pellets, powder pellets, which was, oh man, I haven't seen another document that had that. So this was back in 1879, and so from reading this, the one thing I noticed here when they were making the prismatic powder was for the molds here, they rubbed all the surfaces with light oil or graphite. So what I did is, now I put a small coating of graphite on all my molds, and they pop out beautifully. There's no pieces sticking anywhere. And so the idea for that came from this document. And there's a lot of other interesting things in here. I would recommend anybody reading it that's into making black powder or this kind of historical stuff. It is a fantastic, they give pictures of all the powder making machines. So to make historically correct powder, you would need large rolling mills like this. No, I'm just kidding, but ball mills work fine, I guess. And here is a machine they use to make pellets, and it shows the dyes and the molds for it. And there's a drying oven. So even back in the day, they did dry their pellets just like I do. I do them in a dehydrator or an oven. So that was common practice for drying out their powder and the pellets and the prismatic powders and all that kind of stuff. So there's different types of powders in here that they go over. I mean, it's very detailed. This is an awesome document. I would recommend anybody reading it. And so now that that's said, I will get back to making the powder. And so you want to go to the hardware store and get some graphite powder. And I just put it in a little tin like this with a Q-tip. And so what I do is I take, and if you have a mold that's used, just take a toothbrush, and I don't ever wash these either. So if you have if they're used and you got some powder in here, like bits and pieces, just brush them off, clean them out. And then take your Q-tip here and just kind of gently, you don't want a lot on there, it'll just basically be a light coating. Even the sliding surfaces here, like this. And so this will be a very light coat on both sides. That kind of rubs on and sticks to the surface. Something like that. And it also helps lubricate it, so when you're sliding these two pieces together, they slide really nice, like you're on ice. And so then I will kind of knock the excess out like that. Put my rubber band on. It might be a little bit messier, but I think it's worth doing. They come out absolutely beautiful with the graphite on them. And so all these are already done like this. I graphited all those, and when I go to, so say I were to make a bunch of these and then pop them out and make another batch, I will just put them together like this and then just kind of go like this, and bang, you're done. You don't have to, I just do that. It's just a quick swish of it and you're done. And you could probably even do like every other one, so every other batch, just apply a little bit of graphite to it. And so that's the one change I made to this process. And so the next step here is to mix your powder. And so what I do is you'll need your mixing bowl, you need your pre-compressing dowel, your stirring stick, and then I take my my bowl here, put it on your scale and zero that out. And as far as powders go, if you want really good performing with high feet per second, you want to use Swiss powder. It's completely different than Schützen. I will explain towards the end of the video the difference between the two. But with Swiss on these 44s, I got an average of 850 feet per second. The fastest one I recorded so far is 917 feet per second with Swiss. And with the Schützen powder, I've only gotten 750 is the highest speed I've ever gotten with it, and it averages around 700. So it's usually about high sixes, low sevens as far as the feet per second go. And I will show examples of the cartridges at the end here. Just looking at them, they're completely different looking, the powder cakes. And so I'm going to make these with Swiss. The process is exactly the same. The results are completely different between the two different powders. And I suspect that's why everything black powder got such good times with his, is because his powder is more closer to Swiss than it is to Schützen. Basically, this is Schützen is crap. Sorry, I'm just gonna say it. But so if you want really good speeds, use Swiss. If that's what you're concerned with, if you're just shooting paper, you don't care, Schützen works just fine. And the other thing about Schützen is when you're finished with the cartridge, they look more like the original ones than Swiss does. Swiss, they're a little bit lumpier looking. So, and I will show examples of that, of the two different types at the end of this video. And so you want to zero out your scale here and just pour in. Let me see. I do not like pouring from the jug. And the two powders, Swiss and Go X or Schützen, don't even look the same, I swear. They Swiss has a nice, fine, more consistent grain structure. Schützen, this is 4F also. I forgot to say that. This is 4F powder, both of them. But the Swiss has consistent, fine, nice, even grains. The Schützen looks like it has a bunch of dust and crap mixed in with it, like it was swept off the floor to me. And I think that's what creates the performance difference between the two different powders. So what I'll do is I'll measure out my 25 grains here. Alright, so there's 25 grains, and the next step here is you take the amount of powder you're going to use per cartridge here, and you want to add 3% of this liqueur to it. So basically the math is easy, and I'm going to do a large batch also. Well, I'm going to do a separate video on doing a large batch because it'll take longer in the video. So basically it's 25 plus 3% is 25.75. So I want to add 0.75 grains of this dextrin liqueur to this powder. And I can't do a half a grain, so I'm going to try about, I usually try to hit about 7.8, 7.9. And a lot of times you got to go by the number of drops. This will drop out. And so I think it's about 4 drops. So I will go 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 drops makes it 25.7. Well, I'm just going to do one more. That's 25.8. So about 4 to 5 drops of this dextrin liqueur. And so I'm done with that. Actually, I'm going to make a batch of 6 because when removing these, when I do mine, I always do them in batches of 6. And so you can see this shoots and powder mixes different too. So what you'll see here is it's kind of gotten lumpy. So you kind of want to just mix it up till all the lumps are gone. Just gently stir it. The Swiss powder too, I am sure the glazing in it, it's glazed harder, and the glazing keeps the water from absorbing into the greens more. That's the idea behind glazing. It helps reduce the moisture absorption more. So when you're done, it will be more granular looking than the shoots and powder. So I always get a little bit stuck on there. But just mix that up real good. Take your funnel, and then I just kind of just dump this in. And so I like to hold the funnel and the mold together and tap them down together on the bench. This will kind of push everything down in. Take my compressing dowel here and just, I usually do it 3 times. I will go down until it stops. And I'll do it again. And then I usually like to make sure the powder is below the surface, usually the 3rd one. And I think that helps even out the compression of the and so that's it as far as that goes. I put my cap on it, and I will just kind of get these out of the way. And so that's all it is. It's just measuring your powder, 3% dextrin, mold it, bang, compress it, and you're done. And so that's a lot easier math-wise for that. And so I'm just going to attempt to pull this out right away, just to see how it goes. But I usually do the 6 and then I go back to the first one like Jake does on his video, and I'll just demold them all. So if you're doing 6 in a batch, just do 6. When you get done, go back to your first one and just start demolding them, and they will pop out pretty much right away, pretty easily. But I found that I don't have to pull them apart to let them dry. Let's see if I can do this. So what I'll do is I'll take all that off, I'll put it down on the table, and I like to work on a piece of paper here, so when I'm all done, all my crumbs can be folded and put into an extra container like this, all my little crumbs that fall off. And I'll use that for my flintlock or something down the road. But pretty much you push these down like this against the table, just kind of rock it back and forth, and hopefully, bang, they pop out perfect. So there's almost 0 drying time to demold these. So if you're doing 6 in a row, by the time you get back your first one, it's ready to go. And just put them in, make a little aluminum pin like this, put them in the food dehydrator, and I usually let them in there for 2 or 3 hours, and that'll dry them out. The other thing I forgot to mention was, because when you make these, this 0.75 of this dextrin liqueur, so about less than 1/10 of a grain of this is the dextrin. The rest is water, so you're only having to remove about 0.5 to 0.6 grains of water from this pellet. And so the drying time is a lot quicker, and you have less moisture to remove to start off with by using a pre-mix like this. And so that is that speeds up a lot, so you can really crank them out fast. And this is just a whole lot easier to do. And so that would go in the dehydrator with my batch. And so this is what I do with my paper. So I'm just going to do this now. Oops. So I just kind of go like this, and that keeps all my crumbs off the table and from getting scattered around. And so I want to show some examples here of some finished cartridges with the 2 different types of powder. And I will put some pictures at the end here showing close-up shots of these. You might not be able to see it. But these have been dried. Now if you look at these are Swiss. You can instantly tell which one is Swiss and which one is Schutzen. So a Swiss pellet will look like this. It will look like little shiny rocks with like mortar glued them together. So the Swiss grains actually stay together, so it looks like a wall that's built with stones with mortar in between them. And the Schutzen looks like basically concrete, one solid mass. And you kind of, I don't know if you can see the difference here between the two. And even with the cross section of it, so these have been broke. I need to switch these around. So this is a Swiss here. You can see all the individual grains are still together, and they're just kind of bonded together like a stone wall that's been mortared together. And this one here is more like a solid concrete mix with a little bit of lumps in it. So that's the difference between the two, and these are definitely a heck of a lot hotter than these. But technically, this is how the original ones were. The original Hazard cartridges, I have some pictures of some that were broke, and they look just like this. They do not look like this. But these perform better. These would be more historically correct. So after going through all this, I am thinking the original ones might have just been, perform 700, 750 feet per second. That might have been the norm back then, and that's how they made them. This might be a new and improved version of it that's faster and hotter, so this would be the modern version of the old style cartridge. So that would be my guess. So if you got any questions, leave them in the description below, and I will put a post to this document here in the description. And so that's about it. Thanks for watching.